April show. So
Hi everyone. Did you have a nice Easter weekend, Sophie?
I did. Yeah, I've had a few deadlines, so I've been going through them and starting a brand new module, research methods, which has been very interesting.
Nice one. I'm
Yeah.
halfway through my research methods module.
Oh, nice. I've got to ask, do you prefer reading research papers on the computer, or are you terrible like me and print them out and highlight them?
I've got to print them out. I've got about 10 different coloured highlighters. Can't make sense of it on the computer. Oh, lovely.
This one's got an eraser and thinking, nah, I don't like that. I'm erasing it. But honestly, I just find I miss stuff when it's on the computer, and sometimes it can be like, especially eye strain as well, because my eyesight's getting worse. I've got an eye test tomorrow, and I'm like, I love university, but it ruins your eyesight.
Although I do like the Control F that you can do to find specific words. That's
Yes.
really handy.
Yeah, when you're like, hang on, where did I find that bit? I know. Whereas when it's paper, it's like, I already printed that out. Yeah, it's huge my file now, but I'm loving it.
Mm.
So today, what we're talking about, Lucy?
So today we thought we'd have a nice comparison between the different routes into podiatry, because as you all know, Sophie's a student at Southampton and I'm a podiatry apprentice down in East London. So there's obviously, I wouldn't say pros and cons, I'd say there's playing to your strengths on ways of learning. And obviously some people might be more suited to different styles of learning, so it's nice to have an open conversation about that.
I think so. Well, I have to ask you, Lucy, first. What made you choose an apprenticeship over a Bachelor's of Science?
So I'm a really hands-on person. If you sit me in front of a book, I can't soak it in. I learn a lot better doing practical and then putting theory to it, or doing it kind of along the same time. And I feel that because of the opportunities my apprenticeship has given me through work, I've been able to match up a lot of the theory learning with physically doing it in clinic, and I think it sticks a little bit better for me. But I did an art degree prior to this, so all of that was like, I think 90% of that was hands-on compared to like 10% of some written bits and bats. So I think that really played well for my style of learning.
Brilliant. I think the reason why I chose, especially the University of Southampton, it's very research heavy, and I'm a bit of a nosy person, especially podiatry. I like to understand the inner workings and question why we're doing things. And like with podiatry, it's ever changing with all these researchers out there. You'll learn one thing one week, and then the next week, like, nope, we're going through a different thing. And I think with the university, I like where they've taught us all the whole systems and then applying it to what we would see, how it all presents, and just like building that problem solving skills that we have. And then we have like block placements as well. So you're like part of the NHS team. And then with the research methods, they teach you like all the tricks and trades of being a researcher, how to decipher what's good, what's bad. It could be published in Nature, but actually tiny little sample size, or they've generalized, and you're just using your nous then, and it built upon that. And also, I'd like to get into a bit of research when I graduate as well, and I feel by going to the University of Southampton, I'm really prepared for it. So that was my choice. But we have a guest with us today as well. So we have Karen Reid, who's an academic workplace tutor for Plymouth Degree Apprenticeship Programme. So hello, Karen.
Hi there. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
That's
So tell us a bit about yourself, Karen.
right. So I work on the degree apprenticeship programme, but my particular role is supporting the apprentices in the workplace. So our apprenticeship is slightly different from a lot of the apprenticeships of the other universities, because we deliver completely online. So apart from the, as Lucy said, she does she works in practice. Is it an NHS?
Yes, so I'm employed by the NHS, and I do 3 to 3.5 days of clinic through term time, and then
Yes.
I've got a day of uni, and that's a mixture of in person and online. And then we've obviously got us protected study, which I think I'll talk about a little bit later as well.
Right, so all our apprentices do 4 days in practice, and they do 1 day join-in online lectures. So we are delivering, it is a full BSc degree programme, and they are students at the university. Now, we got some people actually work in private practice, some people work in the NHS, and we've even got an apprentice who works for Age Concern, which is a not-for-profit organisation, and they deliver quite an incredible service down in Canterbury. So the learning is all the things that you've been talking about, Sophie. There'll be things that our apprentices will be able to dip into and experience. They're doing their research projects, they're doing it in groups, so they really do have to be savvy with computers and join in. We do most things via Zoom, organising their groups. But so just going back to say my role is I go out and visit everybody's workplace once a year. Now, considering we've got people as far north as Penrith, we've got Hartlepool, we've got Skegness, Hereford, Canterbury, Cornwall. We cover an awful lot of mileage going to visit every single workplace. And then we also do 2 Zoom meetings a year, supporting their clinical educators. So very much helping them to make sure that they're getting all their clinical competencies sort of tackled, that they don't have any issues that they need to address. They're able to use our e-portfolio, all those sorts of things, all the practical stuff, that they can contact me. We can have Zoom meetings. And then, as I said, I go out and visit them at least once a year. So they get a little bit of face-to-face contact as well.
Sounds like a well-supported program you have there.
Yeah, so we got myself as the academic workplace tutor. They all have their own personal tutors that mainly cover the academic side and also their pastoral needs. So even though they're not attending the university, they are seen very much as students, and they can access all the services. So there's things like the writing cafe that they can attend online. I mean, in a lot of ways, because we started delivering the programme at the time of COVID hit, the university suddenly had to start delivering all its teaching online, which was, it kind of just fell into our hands. So now we just carried on delivering online because that was always the intention. And also, just to say, the course was, so we didn't just take the degree programme as it was and start to deliver it as an online course. The team then, it was actually before I joined the team, they rewrote the whole course, the modules, so it could be delivered online.
I quite like that ours, I think, does something really similar to yours, Karen.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I started mine through COVID, and I think I was part of the first cohort.
Yes.
So for a long stint, it obviously had to be online. But in a way, luckily, because as part of the first cohort, we were almost like, volunteering guinea pigs. 2 of us don't even live in London, so where possible, they've been able to accommodate a lot of it to be online, which, you know, I don't mind saving 30 quid, you know, here and back on a week. Obviously, when we do need to go in, it's lovely as well because you get that face-to-face networking with all the other students.
Yeah, I bet it is. I think our apprentices have got used to just doing everything remotely, but I'm sure that they would really sort of embrace having some face-to-face contact. But of course, because they're in their workplace, they're with their colleagues, so you must find that as well, to be able to work. So they're
that is really nice.
Yeah, like you're saying, so their clinical learning is constant. So every week they're not doing the academic stuff and then waiting for the placement to come up. They're carrying on, so say on a daily basis, weekly basis, they're seeing their routine patients. Yeah, so everybody seems to really be embracing the course at the moment.
I think it gives you that flexibility as well, because I think you find like if you're going into university for, I don't know, like 4 to 5 days a week and you got a family as well, then that could be quite challenging. And like with cost of living crisis and like some people are having to travel over an hour, it can be quite difficult.
I think because everybody that is on the apprenticeship is actually employed. So
how does that work then? Are they band 5 or?
No, right. So the government has some very strict criteria.
Do you have the Annex 21 like we do at ours?
Sorry,
I don't know if it's a pay scale thing or if it's because we're not band 5s because we're not qualified, but we're not quite band 4s because we do more than band 4s under supervision. So it's almost like a band 4.5, but 0.5s don't really exist.
Right, okay. Yeah, so every trust works out their own pay scale, and also because we've got some people in private practice, the regulations say that they have to be paid at least so in the first year it's a minimum apprenticeship wage, which it was about £4.30 last year. I think it's probably just going up. So that's for somebody that's under 25, or is it under 21? It could be under 21 in their first year of study. So that is the minimum that they can be paid. And then somebody that's in their second year, their wages do go up. I think it's to minimum wage. So I'm not 100% sure, but possibly around about £7 an hour. They have to be employed for a minimum of 30 hours a week. And this is the same whether they're in NHS or private practice. But one of the key things with the apprenticeship is the employer has to give them at least 20% of their time, their employed time, to study. Some actually give them more.
I think ours hasn't. We have obviously is a day of uni, and then we have a minimum of 4 to 6 hours a week on top of that as protected learning.
Oh gosh, that's good.
Yeah. And I think that's, I'm not sure if that's individual to the Uni of East London. But like you said, I think as well, it depends on, you know, the rotas and, you know, staff sickness and annual leave.
Yes.
And obviously whether or not you're private or NHS and whether you work Saturdays or...
Yes. I think the other thing with the apprenticeship is, and this is probably the bad side, that they have to be engaged in academic learning for 47 weeks of the year. So I think it's only 42 for the university term.
Yeah.
So what we find is that although it actually works in their favour, so the apprentices have to, they still have their Wednesday protected study time during their summer break. And we give them tasks to do during that time, so that it's outside the modules that they're taking. So they've done all their modules and their exam, but we give them some reflective learning to do during that extra, I think it's about 5 weeks.
And I think it's really handy. I think we have something similar, because it keeps your ball rolling, so to speak, because it's so easy to go and relax into 5 weeks of just clinical practice, and then you get thrown back in September and you go, oh, actually, maybe I should have just kept doing little bits and bats here and there. So from my understanding, and obviously this is something we can touch upon in this little presentation that I've put together with my colleague Phoebe Edwards, the government pay for 95% of the apprenticeship levy, and the employer pays the following 5%. So that would obviously go into things like what the trust or the private practitioner can put towards things like wages and expenses and whatnot. But I do wonder, as an NHS employee, how private practitioners can take apprentices forward, because it's not just NHS that are eligible to do so.
No, that's right. Anybody. So our criteria is, so a private practice has to have at least 2 HCPC registered podiatrists working for them in order to act as clinical educators. So with the best will in the world, a clinical educator is going to have holiday. They're perhaps going to be off sick. So what we don't want to do is have to have the apprentice going on a break in learning because we've only got one clinical. If they only had one clinical educator and that clinical educator's off, they couldn't continue their studies. So the private practices will, literally all the private practices can claim the 95% levy fees. So they end up paying, it's £400 per year, which is really quite good. Now, even if the apprentice leaves, they can't claim that back from the apprentice. So that's protected money and then they get their protected study time. But of course, they only need to be doing directed clinical learning for 1 day a week. The other 3 days can be their own or their existing job. So maybe they've been working as a foot health practitioner or a podiatry apprentice, so they can still earn fee income for the practice, and still be doing sort of working within the practice.
Also, with a private practice, do you find that apprenticeships don't have as much free rein compared to the NHS in the lines of like practicing different opportunities with like different patients as well? Because obviously you have that problem of exchanging cash.
So actually, what seems to be happening at the moment is that because most NHS work is high risk, so they're not, certainly in the early stages, they're not getting a lot of experience on sort of just routine callus removal, and even just sort of normal non-pathological nails. Whereas in private practice, when it comes to wound care, what we try and do is marry up the apprentices in private practice with those that perhaps in NHS, so they can go and shadow on some wound care clinics. So it's quite amazing that the private practices that do have apprentices do offer quite a wide range of services. And so there are perhaps things like shockwave, swift treatments. They're going to be seeing a lot more verrucas. So it does it does vary about what experience everybody's getting, but what we do ask them, where they are identifying gaps, if they can start to perhaps go to another clinic and do some shadowing, and say that's kind of my role as well. I try and marry people up, let's do some swapses here.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to say. With the apprenticeships, are you just like situated in one trust, or would you go like with the degree we would visit different trusts so we can see, because obviously everything's a little bit different, stuff
they
like
are
that.
literally in one trust, so it's their workplace.
Okay.
And it is only like some what we try and encourage people to do where they need perhaps some experience in wounds care, to go and do some what we call an honorary contract or third party contract with another trust, so they can go and get some experience in that area. So no, it can be very insular in the fact that they just go into that particular trust. However, because that is their workplace and that's where they're going to be working once they qualify.
Yeah.
They're the sorts of patients that they're going to be seeing on a regular basis. But there's nothing to stop them doing some CPD, some postgraduate work, and getting more experience once they've qualified. Because don't forget, what you're learning at the moment is just the basics. You're going to be perhaps specialising in a different area. So just literally as a student, you're just dipping into lots of different stuff. And like you're saying that you...
Oh, you've cut off, Karen.
I think your voice is lost.
Yeah.
Try plug your microphone. It might have come loose from your headset. But you are muted now as well. Are we able to unmute Karen from our end?
Is that better?
That's better, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so I can't remember what it's saying now.
It was like networking with other podiatrists for a broader scope of...
So like you're saying you're very interested in research. But there's going to be less opportunities in private practice to undertake research, because you really need to be attached to a university, and better still with an NHS trust. But there are other advantages in the fact that they might be doing, for example,
like the shockwave and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I say, the Swift and other things that people mainly have in private practice.
Yeah, I think you notice, like, especially like the apprenticeships versus degrees, because I've been placed on the Isle of Wight a few times, and a few of my colleagues, because I work there as well as a podiatry assistant, are apprenticeships, and you can just see the strengths between us, and it is brilliant. It's very exciting as well, all the opportunities that we have. And we've got a question from Michael, who is directed to you, Karen. He said, what do you think the biggest difference is between the traditional models and the new frameworks being put into place?
Well, the biggest difference is that with the apprenticeships, the students are not coming out with a hefty loan, because everything is funded for them. Our degree, certainly at Plymouth, what they're studying is identical. So their modules on the apprenticeship route and the standard route are exactly the same tutors. They're going to come out with a BSc, but they're also going to come out with the workplace apprenticeship standard in podiatry. So they kind of get double qualified.
Mm-hmm.
Although you can have a BSc in podiatry without the apprenticeship route, but you can't have the apprenticeship without doing the BSc, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But so say with the apprenticeship, you're paid to study, but you're not, and you're not having to pay, have a student loan because you're being paid in your workplace. But that said, they are holding down, so our apprentices have pretty much a full-time job and they're doing a degree. So it is not an easy route. A lot of them do find really struggle.
Yeah, I would say my course is full-time, even though you may have like a day off a week. It's filled with either working on one module or the next.
Yeah. So they're doing that and they're in the workplace.
And I think there's a catch there as well. I don't know if your apprentices find this the same, but if I was a traditional student and I failed a module and failed a resit, it's all right, I can try again next year. If I fail a module and fail a resit on an apprenticeship, unfortunately, you've not passed your apprenticeship, therefore you've lost your place. So there's an underlying additional pressure of, I absolutely must pass this assignment or this exam.
Yeah.
Because what am I going to do if I And luckily, most of the apprenticeships, actually every single apprentice I know personally has not been in that position. And I think
how many years is your apprenticeship, sorry, Lucy? Is it 3 or 4?
So mine's 4. Because our uni, again, like Karen was saying, it's the exact same modules, but ours is kind of spread out. So I think we only do 2 modules a term, and we also have, so we obviously have the September term and the January term, but then we usually have like a summer term as well. I don't know if that's normal within the normal student route. But I personally quite like that because I think it's a little bit less pressure and you can kind of soak it all in when you're only really doing, I say only, when you're only doing 2 modules rather than like 3. A bit big then, I scared myself. But yeah, so I'm coming up to the end of my 3rd academic year and then I'll be starting in September again. So when I started with the traditional cohort, they will have all graduated this year, but I'll have another year to do.
But it is hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
working at the same time and doing.
And don't get me wrong, the normal traditional student route is also really hard, and it's just going back again to playing to your strengths and the situation that you're in. Because I can talk about this later, but at the time of me applying, there was absolutely no way that I could have done the traditional route because I was in a position where I'd already done a degree. So I didn't necessarily qualify for the same funding that the traditional route does. So I would have had to fork out all the student loans and then wonder how I was also going to pay the bills and then have more student fees at the end of it. So it just wasn't, it might have been an option if I really wanted to struggle. But at the time when I applied for the apprenticeship, if I'd have applied for the student, I'm not convinced that I'd have actually continued it or had been able to do so. So I quite like that that flexibility you were saying, Sophie, of yes, you're earning while you're learning, but it is a full time. I think in my first year, in my first term, I didn't actually have a week. It was my own fault because I'd not gotten used to the swing of like science kind of modules coming from an art degree background. But I didn't have a weekend off up until Christmas because I was still learning and what my learning style was.
Yes.
And do you have that support from like the academic tutors and like your I don't know whether you have it like the University of Southampton, we have PATS, personal academic tutors.
Yeah.
So they'll be assigned to us. So you have like regular
Yes. So
conversations with them.
we hang on, let me get my words right. So we have what we call tripartite meetings with our employer and our academic advisor / course leader, because I think it's the same person for us. So every term we'll go, okay, what we're learning this time, how is clinic reflecting that? How's Lucy doing generally? Lucy, how do you feel? Is there anything else how do you feel the progressing, or is there anything that you're not so confident on? What can we focus on potentially in placements? Because we still have placement modules. Sometimes it's just internal, so we'll, they'll not throw, but they'll throw us into like more MSK clinics if we're going to be doing more MSK things, if that's not what I'm comfortable on. Or padding, I think I had a whole placement on, oh my God, I need to learn how to do a basic plantar pad with different styles of beveling and get the wings right. But so
and do you find you have the time to like absorb the modules as well?
Do I find that I do currently?
Yeah, like with you like balancing like a full-time job as well as studying. I think like with Bachelors of Science, we have that time to like integrate into our learning, and then when we go into placement, we get to apply it into a clinical sense.
I think we do, because so I don't know about Karen's apprentices and what it's like nationally. I suspect, do you guys use APTEM?
Yes.
So APTEM is like a government apprenticeship thing. And we have to do like weekly reflection logs. So we log what all the learning for that week was, and then how we've applied it to clinic. So not only would we have naturally done that anyway, we're kind of like gently pushed into doing like a little short reflection. Okay, well, what have I actually learned this week that actually relates to the learning? And then you can think, oh, well, maybe the clinic was MSK, but the subject was ulcers. So maybe I'll think back on a patient from last week in the MSK clinic who might have had a pressure point that potentially in 30 years with continuously 40 cigarettes a day might develop. So yeah, I can hear the dog.
Oh yes, yeah, she's having a little. It's a rather large golden retriever. She's in her bed, having a little dream. Sorry about that.
Would it be beneficial at this point to get the PowerPoint up? Because I don't intend to just speak all the way through it. I thought it might be nice to do. I'll cover the slide, and then I
was going to say before you did that. So Karen, you were saying that the apprenticeship only includes England, but how do you think like areas like Scotland could get involved with this?
Right, we've it is very much down to their government that to adopt the apprenticeships. The same with Wales, Northern Ireland. They haven't gone down that route. We use something called the Education Skills Funding Agency, which funds the apprenticeships, and they just haven't picked up on it. We don't know why, and it really is quite frustrating, I think, for people. I know we've been to the Foot and Ankle show last year, and so.
I think you might spawn again. Give it a tugging microphone. I think it's physically connected, yeah. You've muted yourself.
There we are.
There brilliant.
We're back again. Yeah, so it's very much up to their government. I know people in Wales are desperate to join the apprenticeship schemes, especially those on the border. They've got to be employed by a practice or an NHS trust in England. It's frustrating.
And also, I know we touched upon people with families and commitments, but what would you say if someone was thinking about, they'd already had a degree, but maybe doing the master's 2 years, because I think it's AECC University compared to an apprenticeship?
Right, so actually, as me marketing Plymouth again, we ran the Masters 2-year pre-registration MSc last year, and we're going to be running it again this year. So we've had 1 year's gap. So yeah, if you've already got a degree in science in the last 5 years, you can join the master's program.
How is that taught? Is that an apprenticeship or is that
That's
similar
going
to
to
the
be
Bachelor's of
no,
Science?
it is an apprenticeship. So they're all degrees. It's exactly the same course, but it's taught through the apprenticeship route. So they do, though, have 2 days academic learning, and then the rest in clinic. So there is more learning because it's obviously condensed down into 2 years. The program has been revised. It's similar, but obviously because it's at master's level, you've got to do a lot more critical appraisal, and so it is a little bit more in depth in that respect. But yeah, it's another option for certainly somebody that has already got a science degree.
It's brilliant that I think just like all the opportunities that people can get into podiatry, because I keep saying how like varied the professional is and all the opportunities, and just having these opportunities, whatever fits you, I just think it's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
We need so many more of us. So
Yes.
I think
Yep.
Lucy's going to show us a PowerPoint as well. Is that right, Lucy?
I am.
Mm.
So, is there a way to make it a little? There we go. Right. So I'm going to go onto my PowerPoint screen now, so I can't see anybody else. So just shout me if I'm missing things. So me and my colleague Phoebe Edwards put this PowerPoint together as part of our I want to say it was like a podiatry conference or maybe an apprenticeship conference. It might have been a general podiatry conference, but anyway. So this is a quick slide to introduce us at our within our first year. So there's Phoebe on the right hand side there, and there's me on the left. I think I'd swung one of the one of the skeleton legs over me legs to one of the uni pictures. Similarly to how, and all of these pictures are consented and whatnot for sharing, but similarly to how other apprentices run, we generally have one university day, which is either online or on campus, 3-ish days of in-work to complement those modules, and protected self-study time. And I think at the time of making this presentation, podiatric pathology, I want to say, was last year. So that exam is not today, luckily. And this is a nice little photo. I think it's from, is this the link down here?
It's from Skills for Health. Was that the?
Yes. I think you are right. But generally just to explain how it works. So it is a healthcare apprenticeship, sorry. You learn while you earn. You've got that uni experience. Obviously at uni you're treated like a student, at work you're treated like a colleague, and it's a nice little mixture. Obviously you've got the apprenticeship funding levy that covers a lot of the fees, and you get to, like, it's almost like a massive placement. You meet so many different staff and patients, and because it is because you are literally working in the workforce, it's just like it is a massive placement. You just get to do so much and experience different things and build up those clinical skills. And I think from the first day, we had a week 0, which I'll talk about in a minute, where I think we spent one of the days through week 0 of uni learning how to hold scalpels safely so that we could, develop that through work, and we had that underpinning skill. Like we've mentioned before, it's still, is it a BSc?
Yes.
I get my letters mixed up. It's still a degree, and it's it's a regulated role, and it's that mix of theory and on-the-job learning.
And like the other courses, they do have to be approved by the HCPC. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Now I had to write some notes on here because I couldn't see me notes on the computer. So we're just going to cover some very small differences between the traditional route and the apprenticeship route, which I think most of which we've already discussed. I think one of the benefits of apprentices is that you get to network both with the students and with your colleagues. So obviously the traditional students may have a somewhat different experience in that their placements are most likely going to be different each time. And I think depending on your employer, most of it, or at least some of it, might be internal. I think I've had 4 placement modules so far, and I think one of them was external, but luckily my employer was able to provide all those clinical experiences needed for that particular placement module in-house. So we just managed to focus on different clinics than I was doing before. Although I do find one of the not so great things is that I don't, because it's a full-time job, I haven't had time to directly engage with things like the student union events because I'm not on campus. I think I'm based in Luton. I don't live in Luton. I'm just on outskirts. But my uni's all the way over in East London, near Stratford. So I don't have time on a Wednesday evening to nip in, for a what do they call it? Yeah, pub night. I was thinking what the quiz is, pub quiz. To do a pub quiz and then come all the way back.
Society night every Wednesday.
Yeah,
I always hear them.
Am I right in thinking that Wednesdays are like a student union event kind of thing through the day as well?
We have, because we only have half-day lessons on a Wednesday. Yes.
I think that might be a general thing then. I think Wednesday afternoons are supposed to be like, to kind of like network with other people and have a fun time while you do it. So I work on a Wednesday, so I don't necessarily have time to go in. So I think that's one of the only downsides because I'm not so close to campus.
I have to also ask, do you find there's like an increased risk of like burnout with a full degree and a full-time job at the same time?
I think it depends. I think I've had a little bit of burnout, but I'm also living quite away from home. So I think some of that is homesickness, which everybody gets. Like, traditional students do get that. And I think one of the benefits of being an apprentice is that you have, our NHS trust definitely has a wellbeing team and really encourages staff to engage in wellbeing activities, mindfulness and, taking a breath, don't rush so much. And, the team's really supportive. So I think it really depends on your experience. But I think generally everyone's really quite, obviously the Students' Union are really supportive and so are the tutors and all the staff that work there. And then you've obviously got your quite big cohort of traditional students alongside you. Whereas I think because the podiatry apprentices are quite a new thing relatively, and there's not so many of us, you don't have that style of 30-odd podiatry students that you can make your groups of friends and whatnot and all as one. But you do have your colleagues at work, which is quite nice as well. I don't think that's a question.
What we do with our apprentices, we encourage them to have a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so they're all chatting away on the WhatsApp group. So we suddenly come across, oh, hang on, we know everybody's been talking on WhatsApp about this. So, and it's amazing the way they've integrated and they've got their own little subgroups as well, as if they, see each other every week.
Yeah. And I think it's lovely as well because, podiatry is growing, or I think it is, especially with apprentices. But your classmates and your apprentices classmates are potentially your future work colleagues anyway. So it's quite nice being able to have that online connection, because, who knows where you're going to be in 3 years. You may very well be at the other end of the country and come across one of your old classmates, and it's fantastic. You all really know each other quite well.
I found that on the first day of starting university, because I'm originally from up Liverpool, so I moved all the way down 220 miles away, not knowing anybody, and now 18 months later I've got friends for life. And then even working on the Isle of Wight, I've got really great friends. It's just brilliant.
It's really good, isn't it? And I do kind of wish I'd have been able to. I mean, there's nothing to stop me, but we were half tempted to set up. I know, Sophie's. Have you got a podiatry society?
Yes, I'm currently this year the president of it.
Oh, very nice. But like I say, I don't have the time on top of work and uni and home life to. I was going to try and set something up, and then
definitely do a virtual one. But what we're trying to do, I've got a classmate who's we're slowly taking over the university. So she's health science officer and I am AHP officer. So the physios think they still rule the uni, but we're slowly taking over.
Fantastic. So this slides on our week 0 of our first year. So obviously this is things that you generally learn pretty quickly, I think, within the podiatry degree. But for us to have a week 0 before week 1 had even commenced for learning officially, we were able to learn, sharp safety, how to use the Dopplers and the monofilaments and the beveling of the different padding types, and so that we could actually be of some use straight away at work. I obviously came from an art degree. I don't think my shape cutting's very good necessarily all the time. And Phoebe will come from a diabetes admin perspective. So we were quite fresh, ready to soak up all the learning. But if you handed me a Doppler, I'd have gone, hello, who's there? I wouldn't have known what it was. So it was really nice that we could kind of jump straight in, so to speak, with a lot of these assessment skills and the padding and stuff for a lot of the higher risk patients, and jump in and do those high risk diabetic assessments. This is a little mock-up of what our day might have been like last year. I think we'd normally do half a day now of admin, so to speak. I know that me and Phoebe are individually in charge, run-ish, some audits. So I'm in charge of our national diabetes audit and she's in charge of the peer audits. But on this particular week, obviously, there's lots of different things, and you might be I think we've got 4 sites across our South Bedford, so we might be mainly based at Houghton, but then we might jump over to Sundon in the afternoon, so it's quite nice because you get to see lots of different places and lots of different patients. And then this is a slide of funny pictures, and there was a reason for them all, and I forget, but let's see if I remember. Oh yeah, so one of the first things I found was that I was so stressed out about doing even the little things right that sometimes I still put my gloves on wrong. And I know that I was helping out last week with the nail surgeries, getting all the sterile on and getting all the tray prepped and whatnot. And I'd done my right one the right way around, and somehow my left one went backward to front, and I was like, oh my God. But I thought that was quite funny. Obviously, you've got all your audits and your admin that's just so important, and you don't quite realise how important it is when you first do it, but then you actually realise that whilst 80% of your day might be clinical, it's just so important to engage in all those new technologies and ways of recording notes. This is me being in charge of becoming in charge of notice boards. We kind of made it a bit more messy than it was really, in secret. But, just reorganising and making things really presentable in a way that's really good for patients and staff. Phoebe's, I know, in charge of lots of stock orders and whatnot. Obviously,
I love that comic.
It's great, isn't it? But yeah, we've been assisting in nail surgeries pretty much from day one as well. And this year we've started being trained on the nail surgeries. Obviously, at this point, we've not completed as pharmacology module just yet. That's next month. But we're able to, and obviously under supervision, do a lot of it. But once we've passed that module, because we're employed by the NHS, we've done that competency, we'll again be able to administer the local anaesthetic under supervision. And that was me, I think, doing a diabetic assessment on a high risk foot.
You won't be able to prescribe till you qualify, but will you be able to suggest?
So we can't supply anything, I don't think, until we've qualified. I'll come off this now because that was just our contact details at the end of it. But yeah, so we can't supply anything, but under supervision we can administer the local anaesthetics, which is really quite exciting. I'll hand on heart admit that I actually fainted last week after doing my first TNA. It was so sophisticated how I fainted. I did it. Oh, I did the surgery really well. I didn't faint great, but managed to remove the offending nail. It was really nice and clean. I walked over to the feeling and I was like, I'm going to sit down for a minute if that's all right. She's like, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Took my gloves off, sanitised my hands, sat down. It happens, doesn't it? I'm so excited for next clinic though. It's not put me off. I jumped straight back in there. Yeah. It's almost like a comedy. When you think back and you go, how did that happen? I was so fine through the whole thing. It was just afterwards.
It's crazy because I did my first nail surgery in my third placement, and it's weird because when I decided to do podiatry during COVID, I remember getting the shadowing opportunity, and I don't know whether he was like, "Ooh, should I test if you really want to do podiatry?" And he was like, "I know. First thing you're going to see is nail surgery." When I saw it, when that nail come off, I thought, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then just like doing it yourself, thinking, "Oh my god, like." It's brilliant when you think like how far we've all come, and so exciting. Like this time next year, it's nearly there. We're nearly qualified. Oh,
have you got one more year?
Yeah, I got one more year.
Lovely.
And then you've got to start looking for jobs.
Yes.
Well.
So, have you got any ideas where you want to go and work?
I think I'm all set for that, hopefully, but I also want to do clinical academic stuff as well, so yeah, there's a process for that, but yeah, I'm very keen with that.
Great.
But what I was going to say, I don't know whether it's the University of Southampton as a degree or it's with everything, but I find what I like about them is we get taught something, but then they'd be like, they get you to search out for the research, and yeah, we're taught to do this, but why are we doing this? And is there like something better out there? Do you find you have those opportunities? Do you see that you're thinking, actually, I need to be a bit more independent with my problem solving skills and bring in research to back it up, rather than, oh, this is 30 years old, we'll still use that, if you know what I mean?
And are you doing it just because someone said to do it, or are you doing it because it's still relevant?
I think it's brilliant, instead of just getting taught what you need to be taught, it's using that like independence, because I think when you qualify and you're on your own without supervision, you can go, hang on, is there a reason why I'm doing this, or would I do it a certain other way? And yeah,
I think it's really great that you're actually questioning things now straight away. That you're.
I won't go on about monofilament because I'll have a full-on rant, but.
Say what you do monofilament, I'll do plantar fasciosis, and then we'll come together. And
what do you call it? Do you call it plantar fasciitis? Because we're supposed to call it plantar fasciopathy now.
Well, I did an MSK question assignment on a plantar fasciitis question, and then I found obviously it's not too like new, but everyone was like, is it itis or is it osis? And my partner were like, and I was like, and he was like, I don't understand, like they're just words to me. But obviously obviously ISIS is inflammation, but because it's very specific ligament tendon, it's not always like actually inflammation. Should we be calling it this, or should? And it's such a in the grand scheme of things, it probably sounds so menial, but then also
when you think of like the different types of treatments as well.
Yeah, but that's it. That obviously is going to impact on the treatment, like what actually is it, so you can treat. And I like vocab quite a lot. So
yeah, because my it is my dissertation, but we're currently in the project protocol stage. I don't know what I'm allowed to say about it, so I'll be very brief. But it's to do with plantar pressures, and what really annoys me is you're on PubMed or like Foot and Ankle Journal, and people use different terminologies, like with time integral. There's different ways of saying anything, and hang on, is that? And that can be quite confusing as well. I know I'm completely off the topic, but that really annoys me.
We'll jump on a call later, being like, right, this ain't going on now.
Oh God. Yeah. That's brilliant. I think we're near the end. So before we go and say thank you, Karen, it's been fantastic today. So next time we'll be back in May. I think it's May the 7th. Let me just double check. I should have this already.
It sounds about right.
Hang on, I've sent an email out to somebody.
The bank holidays. Oh yes, bank holidays. Is it the 8th?
It's going to be Nathan completely off, and we're going to have David Tollerfield, who's going to be talking about a new book called A Career in Podiatric Medicine. That'll be very interesting, especially with third-year graduates. I think they're graduating in June or
July. I think.
July.
Yes, I think the panel and board is on the 24th of July. So our first cohort will be graduating just after the 20th. So the BSc will graduate on the, or get the results round about the 24th of July, just after. And then they've got to go through what they call their endpoint assessment, where they get their apprenticeship.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So that'd be interesting. I haven't fully 100% confirmed, but I am quite confident that we will have him on the show. So I hope everybody. So thank you again, Karen, for being on the show. You've been fantastic.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been great to be talking to you guys and hear what's going on in other parts of the country with their apprenticeships. So sounds really interesting, Lucy. So thank you. And thank you, Sophie.
Thanks for being with us.
No problems at all. And if you know anybody that's interested in doing podiatry, I say share this video out. If we can get more podiatry students and podiatrists in the future, that's brilliant.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
for now.
Bye. Bye.